Do you ever feel like there are just too many issues to tap on? And because that's the case, you just don't know where to begin. And because that happens, you don't tap at all. Well, this week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you one of my favorite tools that I use when I feel overwhelmed by the number of issues I feel like I have to tap on. This is Monterastelli. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 650, originally aired February 19th, 2025. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. There are times when I sit down to tap where it's hard to begin. And I don't know if you've ever felt this, where you sit down to tap and you realize, I want to create change, I want to create transformation, and you just feel overwhelmed because the laundry list of issues feels so long, or you're in a circumstance where you're worried that by diving in and you feel like you're going to be overwhelmed and completely consumed by the emotions. And when this happens, even though we know tapping is such a powerful tool, we don't do it. Because when we come up against that resistance of too many things or it's too big, then we just don't do it. Today, what I want to do is I want to share with you my favorite tool in that particular circumstance. It's called the container process. Now, before we jump into that particular tool, one of the things that makes it easier for us to stay on track and keep tapping, even when we have lots of things to do, is a really simple tracking process that I call the tapping tracker. So in addition to the tool that I'm going to share with you today, if you're in a circumstance where you feel like you're just not getting traction and you're not tapping as much as you would like to, all you need to do is go to tappingqanda.com. That's tappingtracker.com. And if you go to tappingtracker.com for free, you can download the tool that I use every single day. This has been developed off of my daily tapping practice for the last number of years to help you to stay on track and get more out of your tapping sessions. That's tappingtracker.com. So the tool that I like to use when there's lots and lots of things going on is something that I call the container process. And the container process is a way for us to contain and tap on lots of things all at once. It's super simple. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the basic steps of how to use it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the applications, because there's lots and lots of ways that you can use it, not just when you're completely overwhelmed by what is going on in front of you. And then finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through the process, and we're going to do some tapping today. So afterwards, if you want, you can do the process on your own from the step-by-step process, or you can just come back to this again and again and just tap along with me and make it super, super simple, and you can just let your fingers do the walking. So the process itself is pretty straightforward. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to do a little tapping. And again, in a moment, I'm going to lead you through this, but to do a little tapping on the idea that it is okay for us not to know and understand everything that we are tapping on. Now, our subconscious mind wants to know why we are the way that we are. And this is a really useful thing. When I understand where I'm coming from, lots of times in tapping, we spend time with those initial sensitizing events where we go back to the memory, we go back to where the limiting belief, the trauma was created. But we don't always have to know that. Our subconscious mind always wants to know, because if it knows why I am the way that I am, then I'm going to be able to prevent it in the future. But for me, healing is much more important than understanding why I am the way that I am. There are going to be times where we will never know why we are the way that we are, and there are times where it is unimportant. So when I'm doing the container process, because I'm going to be tapping on lots of things in a way where I'm not tuning into the details, the first thing that I do is I do a whole bunch of tapping on being okay with the fact that I don't need to understand what is going on, the issues that are there, why they came up, and that I don't have to understand them when they are releasing. And so what this does is this immediately relaxes my entire system as I step into this particular process. So number one, we're going to set the table, letting ourselves know we don't have to understand. The second thing that we're going to do is we're now going to think of in our mind's eye a container of some sort. Now, when I say in my mind's eye, it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily visualize it because I know there are some people who do not actually visualize things in their head like there is a movie projection, where other people it's three dimension and it's high definition when they're imagining things. So you're going to imagine whatever that looks like and that feels like for you a container. Now, when I say a container, I mean something that is going to hold the issues that we're going to be tapping on. And so it could be a vase, a bowl, a basket, a pit in the ground, whatever makes the most sense for you. And as you come back to this again and again and again, it might not be exactly the same each time. So to begin with, just imagine a container of some sort. Typically for me, it's like a large marble vessel, almost like from a mortar and pestle when you're breaking things down. So you imagine something that is that size. So we've tapped on being open. We've imagined our vessel. Now, the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to fill the vessel up with everything that we need to tap on. Now, as we do this, we're going to set the intention that as we do this, we don't have to understand everything that's in there. For me, I'm just going to imagine everything my system feels like it needs to clear and transform. And as we do this, we're going to see it in that container. Now, when it's in that container, it's going to show up in lots of different ways, whatever works best for your imagination. It might be a pile of icons. It might be a bunch of paper stacked in there. It might be a bunch of balls that hold each and every issue inside of it. It might just be a cauldron of energy that is bubbling there. Again, let your imagine play along and just say, I don't know how it works best, but what might be the best way for me to visualize all of this stuff? And again, you might not see it. Visualize is just the word that we use, but I want you to imagine it in the container in that way. And so you just see the container fill up with those issues. Now that we have filled our container, the fourth thing that we're going to do is we're going to tap on what is in the container and we're going to transform it. Now, there's lots of ways that we can transform what is going on in the container, and you'll see in the demonstration at the end of this episode where I'm going to talk you through how you might think about that. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to imagine transformation. We could imagine it burning up. We can imagine energy coming into it and transforming it. Or we could simply imagine the vessel, the container, being carried away so we no longer need it. But because we're using the metaphor, the beautiful thing about the subconscious mind, which is a metaphor machine, change the metaphor machine. So as we transform this metaphor, this visualization, this imagination, what's going to happen is we're going to actually create change inside of us. And we're just going to work our way through that. Then take a nice big deep breath at the end of that and then tune back in. Now we can go back and we can repeat the process. We can put the container then. We can put whatever is left inside of it. We can put new things inside of it. Or you might be in a circumstance after doing that. Now there is clarity for you to step in and tap on a specific issue. Or there's a sense of safety because you no longer feel like you're going to be overwhelmed. So those are the 4 basic steps. Tap that we don't have to understand, visualize the container, fill the container, tap and transform on what's inside of the container. Now, there's lots and lots of applications for this particular process. Number 1, if you're ever in a circumstance where you don't know where to begin, and you could feel like you don't know where to begin because it's just like, I'm feeling all of these things. So you just say, I don't know exactly where to begin. Subconscious mind, fill up the container with the things I need to be tapping on first. The second time I find this really useful is if I know all of the things that are going on, but I feel overwhelmed by what is going on. I'm in a circumstance where it's like, I don't know where to start on my list of tapping. Because you might have a tapping list from your tapping tracker of all these tail enders that you want to go after. Just imagine dumping all of those tail enders in there. Just imagine dumping everything that is going on that you're consciously aware of and subconsciously aware of. Because more than likely, there are some things that are in the back of your mind that are holding you back. And so in a visualization like this, when I have all of the things, I just dump them in there. The third way I love to use the container process is when I'm in a circumstance where I feel like the issue at hand is way too emotional for me to tune into all of the details. And so when I'm in a circumstance where it feels like where it's too big, what I'll do is I'll just imagine it again as some sort of representation in this container, and it gives me the ability to take the edge off what is going on. And when we do this, one of two things happen. Either one, the issue just goes away and we don't have to worry about it. Or number two, it becomes smaller and it becomes manageable so that we feel like we can engage with it. The fourth way that I love to use the container process is it's a great way to start a session by just when I'm going to sit down, I'm going to tap for a longer period of time. I might go, great, what are all the thoughts that are bouncing around in my head that have me distracted from the healing that I'm going to do today? And so I do the container process with that. So it's almost like I'm clearing the deck. It's almost like when I sit down at my desk at the beginning of the day, the first thing I do is I clean it up and I organize everything so that now I'm ready to do the work. Because as my day unfolds, I'm pulling things out, I'm working on things, and they just kind of build up around me. And so now that the desk is clear and organized, it makes it so much easier for me to engage with what is in front of me at that moment. So it is great to use when we don't know where to begin, when we're overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that we have to tap on, when we're overwhelmed by the amount of issues that are at hand, or it's just a great way to start a session. So let's do that. Let's work our way through this so you can see exactly what it feels like. So tap on the side of the hand, just take a nice big deep breath. Take another nice big deep breath. Okay, so step one, what we're going to do is we're just going to clear the decks on needing to know all of the details. Repeat after me. I recognize the fact there is a part of me that is worried that I have to know the root cause of every single issue. And the reason why my system wants to know root causes is because it wants to learn. It wants to know why I am the way that I am. And there are times in which it is really useful for me to understand why I am the way that I am. But just because it's useful sometimes doesn't mean it's useful all the time. There are times in which I will never know why I am the way that I am. There are times in which knowing how an issue was created isn't actually useful. I give myself permission to trust. If there are lessons to be learned, I will learn them. And in this moment, as things release, they can release in a way where I don't have to understand. I don't have to know. Healing is the goal and the most important thing. Nice big deep breath. And so you can see as we engage in that particular way, just the lightness that comes from that. It just takes pressure off as we step into it. And so you can actually use that sort of tapping to start any sort of tapping session, not just with the container process. Because the more relaxed and the less pressured I am to get it right and understand everything, the easier it is going to be for me to tap every single time. Great. So now that we've set the table, what we're going to do is we're going to work through steps 2, 3, and 4, which is create the container, fill it up, and tap on it. And so just move from tapping point to tapping point in the order that makes the most sense for you. Just let your fingers do the walking. And if you end up where you're just parked in one tapping point and stay there, that's perfectly fine. So what I want you to do is you tap. Just imagine a vessel or a container of some sort. And that container could be a basket, it could be a bowl, it could be a vase, it could be a hole, just anything that's going to contain a box, a big crate, doesn't matter. Let your imagination create something. And again, you might not see it, but just feel its presence there. And now, what I want you to do is I just want you to imagine the container filling up with the issues that we're going to tap on. And as the container fills up, the subconscious mind is just going to give a shape to them, and it might be a bunch of papers in a pile or crumpled up balls like trash. It could be a bunch of icons. It could be energy. It could be a bunch of glass balls. It could just be something that is full. And as you see it fill up, just know it's all things that are useful for us to release and let go of. And now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine something that's going to transform this. And oftentimes, and just trust your instinct. What's the best way for us to transform this? Maybe it's just to burn it all off. And if that's the case, just see it burning away. Or you might imagine a healing light pouring into it from above. And as that healing light pours in it, it transforms. It melts away. Maybe the energy is heat and it's not light. Almost like a laser beam melting something away and breaking it up. Or it could simply be it just needs to be removed. It just needs to be taken away. And just repeat after me out loud. I know I don't know the answer to this. But if I did, what is the best way for me to transform this? And then just listen to the answer. And again, in your imagination, just see that happening. And just let whatever is doing the transforming, the energy, the fire, the light, it just knows exactly what to do. You don't even have to guide it. And as a bonus step, which we didn't talk about before, let's just continue the healing process. Move from point to point, repeating after me. I recognize the fact this is a healing process and not a healing moment. And I give myself permission to allow that healing to continue throughout the day. My system is a healing machine. And I don't have to be present to that healing as it is happening consciously. This process is just the start. And I allow the healing to continue even after I am done tapping. Nice big deep breath. Big stretch. Now, if there's anything that you notice that came up with this, some insights, some tail enders, grab your tapping tracker, jot those things down so you can come back to them at a future date. And if you want, what you can do is you can go back to the beginning. You could do this again. You can continue your regular tapping now that you've cleared the decks, or this could be the entire process. It really is that simple. 4 steps. Give yourself permission not to understand. Create the container. Transform what is going on. Fill the container up. Transform what is inside the container. And then give yourself permission to allow the healing to happen. Go back and do that again and again as often as you like. So that's it. It really is that simple. You don't have to do it that way, exactly the way I did it, but start there and then feel free to iterate and transform that. It is such a valuable tool to have in your tapping tool bag, especially when you're in a circumstance where there's so much to tap on or you're really afraid you're going to be overwhelmed. It will set the table for you perfectly. If you know anybody in your life who would appreciate a little tool like this, be our ambassador. We say this all the time, and it is true. Our marketing budget is your word of mouth. If you know someone in your life who could use something like this, it would be absolutely amazing if you passed it along to them. Don't spam your inbox, but there might be 1 or 2 people who could really use this. The highest compliment that you can pay to me and my work is to share it with someone else. As you look at the screen right now, you can see the entire archive of the Tapping Q&A podcast. There's 650 episodes waiting there for you. Dive in, and I look forward to talking with you and tapping with you again real soon. Bye-bye.